Mathis, and I'm the ASU Downtown President.
We also have our graduate student body president who's joining us over Zoom. And
Hi everyone, my name is Shoaib Manvik. Sorry for being late, and I'm the student body president for the Polytechnic campus.
my name is Sadra Shaheen, and I'm your ASU West Valley student body president. Before we get started, I wanted to go over the format for today's discussion. We will take time to hear from President Crow about some university updates. Then we'll begin the Q&A portion where I will be asking questions submitted to us prior to this forum. We will also have the other presidents who will be monitoring questions that you submit live via the QR code. We will also ask those questions directly from the Q&A live via the Zoom format. Because we only have 1 hour with President Crow, we understand that not all questions will be answered. However, we will follow up with your questions within 1 week, so this time next week. Follow our updates on the ASASU website throughout the school year and our upcoming priorities for this academic year. Thank you, President Crow, for being here. Before we get started on some of the questions students have, can you share some updates about the university at this time that you believe are important for students to know for this spring?
Well, thank you, and happy to be here. Sorry, we're kind of on ground level, so I can't see everyone, but I think there's a projection of us up there or something. So anyway, all in all, here we are in the spring semester of 2025. The university is operating, in a sense, full throttle. We have the largest number of students that we've ever had on campus, on each of our campuses. We call those students, many of you who are here, full immersion students. We have the largest number of digital immersion students, some of whom are watching in our online programs also. So all told, this academic year, between 180 and 190,000 individual students, about half on campus, about half online. Great progress. We're seeing enhancements in retention, enhancements in outcomes, all in all, positive on almost every front. We are just now advancing our understanding of how the university has been doing in research competitions. And research expenditures. So we will in FY24 break $1 billion a year of research expenditures, which is a huge achievement for our faculty, students, and staff, because that's only been done by 3 other universities in history anywhere in the world without a medical school. So only MIT, Georgia Tech, and UC Berkeley have been able to do that without medical schools. And so we're very excited about that. We're advancing. We have $100 million of new projects that have now opened here on the West Valley campus. We have new facilities being constructed on all of our campuses, all ongoing, underway. We have 16 of our 25 competitive varsity sports are competing in the spring. 5 of those are ranked in the top 10 in the country. So we're very excited about how they're doing and how things are advancing. We've got significant amount of new faculty hiring coming on board for the fall semester. That's done in the fall and the spring semester, usually settled in the spring semester. So we're very excited about that. Demand for the institution is high, applications high, people that want to be a part of ASU high. Based on the last estimate that I saw, the game that we played in Atlanta against the University of Texas as a part of the football championship bowl series had 13 million people watch that game. Which we're very excited about, and more people than that watch film of Cameron Skattebo, one of our running backs, who was the most valuable player of that game. Only a couple times in 50 years had a player from the team that lost the game been elected as the most valuable player. So congratulations to Cameron for that. And so all in all, things are off to a great spring semester. There are a number of issues at the national level, politics issues, university financing issues, things that are going on, all of which are going to be hopefully worked out in the courts as people determine what is the authority of the Congress, what is the authority of the president, how does this work, how does that work? So all of that is being worked out. And for those of you that are new to these kinds of issues, there's nothing new about these kinds of debates. So the way that it works is that there are 3 branches of government in the United States. Each are equal. They are designed to operate in what's called, as you'll remember from high school, a series of checks and balances in which each part of the enterprise is somehow balanced and checked by the other parts. So the Congress, for instance, the U.S. House of Representatives, is the only body of the government that can initiate taxes. all taxes must be initiated by the House of Representatives, which is considered to be the body of the people. People are elected to the House of Representatives for 2-year terms. And so the notion is that it's constantly being revived relative to the will of the people. And so the Congress is made up of the House and the Senate, as you'll recall, but all taxes must come from that body. It turns out then that the Congress then also establishes agencies and funds those agencies. And the president, I'm not talking about the specific president, I'm talking about the office of the president. The office of the president is charged with implementing those decisions. And so then there's a check and a balance when they get into conflict with each other. So if the Congress says this, or the president does this, or someone does this or that, and then they can't come to an agreement, then, or there's an affected party where there's a sense of the agreement not being legal, then you go to the court to make a decision. So right now, the United States federal courts are looking at a number of decisions where there's conflicts going on. And so this is all part of, as you'll recall from civics, the way that things work. So the powers of the Congress or the powers of the president are checked against each other by the interpretation of the court. So there's a lot of things going on right now that could impact ASU. We have received a number of instructions from the government relative to projects that we implement, and then those instructions have been now temporarily restrained. The phrase is temporary restraining order. That means that the decision cannot be implemented until the court can make a judgment as to whether or not the decision was legal or not. So we're in the middle of all of that. And so how many of you have heard about some of this going on? Some of you are wondering what I'm talking about. You're probably better off. Just keep working out, doing your swimming, pay attention to nothing. It'll all clear up at some point. So anyway, so all in all, I think we're in good shape, and I just wanted to sort of put in context where some of these things are relative to the government.
Thank you, President Crow. To kick off the Q&A portion, we will ask some of the questions that you were submitted to us. If you are joining via Zoom, the questions feature on the webinar is on. So if you have any questions during this time, you can type your questions there. If you are joining us live, please use the QR code to submit your questions directly. We received several questions in regards to the event on campus that occurred at the Tempe campus on January 31st. ASU is home to a diverse range of viewpoints. How does the university ensure a balance between free speech and fostering an inclusive, respectful environment? How the university will be more responsive in the future, and what protocols is the university going to put in place to stop the discrimination of one ethnic group over another?
Well, I mean, there's a conclusion in the so I don't know that that conclusion is accurate or not. And so what I can say is I can give you a broader answer. ASU goes to great lengths to protect free speech. And how do I know that? Because we hear complaints from every group that doesn't believe that another particular group should be allowed to speak. And so we hear that from almost everyone. So in all cases, someone will be allowed to speak, and then someone will be upset that that person is speaking, and someone will also say this or this or this. And so free speech is highly protected at the university, but hate speech is not protected. You know, my family was raised in a Methodist tradition, which is one of the Protestant faiths. And so if somebody said all the Methodists should be killed, well, that's hate speech. And so within the student code of conduct and the faculty code of conduct within the university operating environment, you know, we can't say that. Now, you know, we can't hold events that are about violence or perpetuate violence or condone violence or condone hate speech. But so we have gone to great lengths. We spend massive amounts of resources to protect people's free speech, to protect their safety. And that event and those events that day were all of that same ilk. Now, people can be greatly offended by what the speaker says, but they have a right to say it, so long as they don't violate the incitement of violence or the hate speech. And so that is interpretable. People will say, well, I didn't mean that, or that doesn't mean that. And then based on that interpretation, then we have to make a decision about whether it is or isn't. And so we're involved in all of those things. There was also I don't think this is what the question is referring to, but there was a conference about free speech involving deans of different law schools and Berkeley Law School and Yale Law School and Harvard Law School and so forth, where they were debating what is free speech and what isn't free speech and their view and so forth and so on. And so we're going to be a home for those kinds of things. And then in addition to that, we're also a home for a new Center for Free Speech and Free Expression and a number of other initiatives that are related to free speech and free expression. So we've got all of that going on. So I don't know if that answers that particular questioner's question, but in terms of protecting people from hearing things, you know, we can't do that. You know, we can't protect people from hearing things. And so you can choose whether or not you want to listen to it. You can choose whether or not you want to respond to it. And if you think that a person is wrong, then you have a right also to say that they're wrong, and then to be critical of their speech and be critical of their views. So if someone says, you know, I think that thus and such should happen, you know, all people from Canada should be thrown out of the United States. Well, someone else can say, well, I don't think that all people from Canada should be thrown out of the United States because I think your idea is flawed for this reason, this reason, this reason, and this reason. And that's what we want to see happen. Respectfully, making cases, making arguments, and so forth and so on. And then also respecting other people's rights to express their views, even if their views are completely abhorrent to everything you believe in. So a person may say, why do you believe in God? I think everyone that believes in God is stupid. Okay, well, they have a right to say that. And then you can explain to them why that's not the case or why I have a right to do that. And so that's where we are on that.
Thank you so much for that, President Crow. What do you think students can expect if this happens again?
Well, I don't know what they mean by what happens. And so did something happen specifically? I'm looking at Dr. Joanne Vogel, the Vice President for Student Services.
Yeah, so during that event, we have something called the Situation Engagement Team. So groups of people who are monitoring to look for anything that might be against ASU policy or student code of conduct. And I am not aware. So if anybody is aware of something that happened on that 31st that needs to be reported, please let me know. But so far, I have not heard
What
anything.
you should, this person, the questioner, if they're listening, should, if they've got a specific thing that they heard or they saw that maybe someone else didn't see or what have you, they should contact Dr. Vogel and her team of deans of students that are around the institution, and they will engage immediately at looking at the particular concern to see what happened.
The next question is from a West Valley student. Are there any steps being taken to better help students in regards?
Well, what I would say, and I'm going to ask Dr. Vogel to comment on this also. So regarding student mental health, here's what everyone needs to understand. This is really important. And I've come to realize this myself, with my family, with my relatives, with people I know. Everyone has mental health objectives. Everyone needs to work on their mental health. Everyone needs to address things that happen within your mental health framework. Everyone. And so, most importantly, on mental health issues, is that people need to raise their hand. You know, I'm feeling something and I'm not myself. I'm encountering some emotions that I've never encountered before, and they're affecting my functional capabilities. Every time I see Bill, I become enraged. You know, whatever it is. I mean, I'm making Bill up, but you need to raise your hand and try to get help. So Joanne will comment, and then maybe Aaron also. So.
Sure. So I'll start with if you are or you know anyone who is in crisis, we always have immediate assistance available for crisis services. So that could be walking into the counseling center, it could be walking into a dean of students office, it could be talking to a faculty member. We can always get you immediate crisis help and care.
Going onto the chat bot and saying, help me and I need help, you know, that kind of thing.
Yep. And so beyond that, I just this morning was in an Arizona Board of Regents mental health and wellbeing work group meeting, where one of the things that we should be really proud of as Arizona State University is being part of and looked at as a model for mental health and care in the collegiate mental health environment. And so we are building a statewide system of support. And in many ways, you know, Arizona State is part of looking at how we are accomplishing that with everything from, you mentioned 24/7 care. We have a service I hope everyone is familiar with called Open Call, Open Chat. So we can get, that's what you're talking about with some texting or telemed available for anyone at any time. And then we also do some of the proactive and preventative work. So not only the intervention and response work, but how are we reaching out to promote mental health and well-being ahead of anyone needing an intervention or
Which is
crisis?
also you taking care of yourself, eating the right food, sleeping the
All of
right
that.
amount. If you do what I used to do when I was an undergraduate, which was not go to bed 2 nights a week. I'm just telling you that for some people, including me, that's not healthy in the long run. Your attitude will be affected, your emotions will be affected. Do you want to introduce Aaron?
Sure. Dr. Erin Krasnow, who oversees ASU Health and Counseling Services. And so anything I missed, please share.
Think either of you missed anything. I'm just going to underline, I think the last thing you said about care for yourself, care for each other. So most things that people talk about as mental health conditions are social conditions. There are experiences. When you see Bill, you get enraged. That's probably something about Bill and maybe,
Made Bill up.
yeah,
Yes.
and something about yourself. If we think of those issues as issue of interconnectedness, then there's a lot that we can do on an individual basis to get help, but also a lot we can do for each other. So every day that we take responsibility for each other's well-being, ensure that we are creating the conditions under which it's easy for someone to put their hand up and get help, and also create pathways for people to give us feedback about how they're experiencing us. The better chance we have not only to be proactive in mental health response, but when someone does have an issue, they'll get the help that they need.
So this last point about helping other people, I know that a lot of students might feel like they shouldn't interfere in someone else's life, or they're nervous about saying something to someone else. I mean, it's very, very powerful to reach out to someone and say, you know, can I be helpful to you? You look like you're stressed, or, you know, have you thought about, you know, talking to somebody about these, you know, if you hear a person's, you know, ideating about self-harm, man, that person needs to talk to somebody, and that person needs to get some advice and some, I don't know what better word to use, counseling. And so, because self-harm is not good, and then sometimes people's thoughts get carried away and they harm themselves or they harm someone else along the way, when if you had heard a person saying this, you might have been able to help them. Now, maybe that person will reject you. That's the risk that you need to take, because you're trying to help that person to get the help that they need, so that maybe they don't go down this path in which their life will be altered in ways that could have been addressed. And so my 2 sisters, they're like all over me all the time. You know, what about this? Are you worried about this? You worried about that? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, they're just relentlessly after me. So I think it's because they care about me and they hold nothing back. So you should look at your friends and your family the same way.
Thank you, President Crow and Dr. Krasnow. Can we highlight the mental health resources for ASU online students, please?
Sure. So ASU online students have access to the same thing that we call open call, open chat. It's called Life 360 for ASU online students. Same kind of service, available 24 hours a day globally through chat.
And how many online students do we think are using that?
Thousands. Some people, the majority use of that service is actually 1 to 2 times, because as you said, President Crow, a lot of it is functionally problem solving, that it then manifests itself as sort of an expression of anxiety or depression or other issues. And it's the engagement with a helpful other that tends to reduce the experience from a distress to back to maybe stress, but something that I can manage. And so that help seeking and
That's
help giving
important.
does a
Stress back to just stress. So distress is you're putting yourself in at risk. Stress, you're managing your complexities. And so those are that you'd rather be at less stress, but you don't ever want to go to distress.
Yeah, so all these services actually are designed exactly around that, which is people are distressed. We're trying to help them return to a level of functioning. All of us function with various levels of stress, and that's available for ASU online students too.
Thank you, Dr. Krasnow. This question is from a graduate student. Why did ASU pay conversion therapy proponent Mary Rice Hassan CAI February 4th to speak to students, but refuses to dedicate any spaces or resources to a LGBTQIA+ center?
I don't know the details of that particular case. Maybe someone else does. I don't know if ASU, an academic unit invited a speaker to talk about conversion theory.
Topic, it was not. Now, she's known for having spoken in the past.
The microphone.
Yeah, I think that that particular talk, so I can look up, was connected to an academic unit. The title wasn't in order to talk about therapy, although that particular speaker is known to have supported conversion therapy in the past.
Right, so we can get more details on that for the questioner, but within the academic space, it may have been related to a research question. It may have been related to something else, but we can get the details to it. The family under attack, and what was the department? And I don't know if there were any ASU resources that were brought in for that, so. Center for American Institutions, so one can ask them and then ask us, or you can ask us and we'll get you more of the details.
Thank you. How is the university investing into sports programs to see similar success as we saw in football this past year across all sports programs? Are they asking how is ASU investing in all ASU NCAA teams in the same way they invested in ASU football?
So the answer is yes. So we're going to become the first university in the NCAA to offer full scholarships for every athlete. And so we're in the process of implementing that right now. And so let's take a team like baseball or softball. So those two teams, one's a men's team, one's a women's team, and both Olympic sports. And so I don't remember the number on softball, but on baseball, I remember that there's about 35 baseball players. So the teams have a maximum number of players. And they also in the past had a maximum number of scholarships that could be offered. And that was 13 for baseball. And so now we will offer 35 scholarships in baseball. And that will then allow us to attract more athletes, high achieving athletes, better athletes, compete against other schools. And so that's applied to every team. So that's something that we're doing. And then in addition, we have decided in the way that we operate Sun Devil Athletics that we will now treat, for the first time in the last 100 years, we will treat athletics as a part of the core enterprise called the ASU Public Enterprise, as opposed to it being an auxiliary business. As an auxiliary, they had to fend for themselves. As a part of the core, the university is investing, the enterprise is investing in athletics and its success. And that benefits all the teams, not just football. Football secures more investment because it is, one, a more expensive sport because of the nature of the playing, the size of the team, the scale of the team, the competition between the coaches for salaries and so forth and so on. But it also is the principal revenue generator for all sports. And so football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and hockey are generating income. And there's three sports that are generating substantial income beyond their expenses. That's men's basketball, football, and hockey. Those sports are generating revenue for all of the other sports. And so in those sports cases, you might make additional investments in those sports to help secure the revenue that you need for all of your sports. And so that's sort of how that works.
Thank you, President Crow. This next question is from a graduate student. President Crow, are you aware that Empower Financing, a loan provider that is mostly used by African students, is giving us extremely high rates for our loan interest rates? They range from 14 to 16% per loan disbursement. After paying the fees, the amount to pay back is between the ranges of $328 to $1,000 a semester. $328 for the first semester and $650 by the time you get to the second semester. And by the time you are close to graduating, it's $1,000 plus. With the additional $350 surcharge, this is going to pinch the margins even further for African international students. Is it possible to negotiate a favorable rate for us based on supply and demand economics with loan providers? These rates are killing our ambition. We want to get a great education, but these prospects are a bit limiting, sir. Or maybe to support us with an ASU-approved refinancing provider so we can refinance at lower rates when we get our first job.
Yeah, so I don't know the details of this, but what I would say is that no student should be taking loans from anyone for their college that haven't been approved by the university, working with the financial aid office. And you should definitely not be taking loans from, not credible loan institutions or what's called loan sharks, or, people that will, I'll lend you this money, but you have to pay me back twice as much a week from now. That's what a loan shark does. I understand loan sharks because my father used to take money from loan sharks, and they'd show up at the door and knock at the door, and we had to hide that he was there because they were going to come in and beat him up or whatever to get the money back from him. Nobody going to school here needs to deal with that. And so that particular student should contact Student Affairs immediately I don't know the details of that group or that company or these percentages. Was this for African students? Is that what it said? Students from Africa?
I believe so.
Is she here? Yes, come on up. Missy Pizzo is the head of financial aid for the behemoth Arizona State University. So first, how many students receive financial aid under your jurisdiction?
More than 143,000 students receive some form of financial aid.
And so your office manages, including the student loans, how many billions of dollars per year?
More than $2.2 billion in all forms of financial aid
Per year.
per year.
And so what about this?
Yeah, great question. So it's a phenomenal question. Arizona State University, we are participants in the federal financial aid program. As part of that, there are rules we need to follow when it comes to private lending. Empower is a private lender. The university, like all universities, have a choice of either using an entity that is kind of a free market tool. It's called Elm Select. It's a national tool that many colleges and universities use. You can either use a tool like that. The university cannot promote any one product for students to utilize unless we
Product meaning a lender.
Correct, yes. A private lender, unless we choose to become unless we have a selective lending service, and then we have to run our data, do all sorts of things to meet compliance for federal financial aid rules. Empower is an approved private loan provider that is an approved part of our Elm Select service that Arizona State University does utilize. There are some challenges in the private lending space, generally speaking, whether a student is a U.S. citizen or a non-U.S. citizen, but not all private lenders will lend to international students. So Empower is one of very few loan service providers that will actually lend to an international student because there is no basis of understanding any financial information and background for the individual since they're coming from another country.
So what that would mean then is that if this particular student is having issues with this particular lender, they ought to sit with ASU financial aid people and talk through their particular situation. If it is a lender of last resort for some international students, then the interest rates will be higher because the risks are higher. So interest rates are generally associated with risks. So the risk of a loan is that some people don't repay their loans, and the non-payment of the loan is then built into the interest rate. And so the interest rate is a recovery mechanism for the funder. Now, what we would do with such a student is sit and see if we can be beneficial. I'll also say that there are thousands and thousands of international students that work as students for ASU, and they can generate, some students are making $2,000 a month if they're in a high wage job with 20 hours a week or more. And so there are lots of ways to get the student some of the resources that they need, but they need to sit with someone and look at all of these details.
Thank you.
Thank you. This next question comes from an online student. The Barrett Honors College offers an honors experience that in-person students can join when they come as first years. However, Barrett Online only accepts students once they have met the ASU first year composition requirement and have completed 24 college credits post high school graduation. When will online students be able to have a 4-year Barrett experience just like in-person students?
Well, I'm not 100% certain of the logic of that particular set of requirements, but I understand why that would be there, because to compete within the Barrett College system and the courses that are being taken, a person has to have demonstrated to be admitted to Barrett that they have a certain level of communication capability, and so you have to prove that in some way. If you haven't proved that in high school, or you went to college and didn't finish college, or you went to college and your first grades in English were D or F or W, then the notion would be, well, okay, you're not done, but you have to prove yourself. So that's the present design. And so I don't know when that might be changed. I know that Provost Gonzalez is here. I thought I saw her over there somewhere. I don't know that we need a specific answer beyond that, but Nancy, did you want to add anything? No? Okay.
Thank you, President Crum. This next question is from Angelica, an online student. Are there any specific plans in place to improve the availability and functionality of audiovisual conferencing equipment in campus facilities to ensure that online students can engage with in-person meetings and events effectively? And how is the university addressing ongoing technology issues in common spaces where online students are expected to connect with faculty or peers, such as poor Wi-Fi, malfunctioning equipment, or lack of accessibility features?
Important question, and I understand the purpose of the question. So the university has about 1,200 spaces called classrooms of various sizes, 10 people to 800 people, all of which are set up for Zoom. And so if you don't schedule one of those spaces and you just end up opening up your laptop in a meeting room or in the corner of the union or something, you may not get the best system for a student group meeting. And so students have access to Zoom. They have access to these rooms. These rooms are schedulable. The Zooms are obviously schedulable. So there's all of that's available, but you have to plan ahead. So you can't just, on the fly, it's a little bit more difficult unless you have a unified Zoom number and you're just having everybody Zoom in on something. In terms of the accommodations for disabilities or what have you, those are things that should be worked out with the disabilities office, even for an online student. So if a person needs a special device or a special system or something, we have a way to work all of that out. And so it may be that particular student is engaged with other students who didn't schedule the room or didn't schedule the right equipment or didn't get the Zoom site, and they're trying to get everybody onto a FaceTime call on their phone. And so everything is available. You just have to use it. There's no lack of anything.
Thank you, President Crow. This next question is from Joseph, a Polytechnic student. Does ASU try to reduce use/requirement of non-Libre, aka proprietary or non-free software, as recommended by the GNU project?
That's a highly specific question that I don't know. And so we will get that question to get that answered. I mean, so that person has insight into software licensing that the university is using, generic software, universal software, open source software, open source coding, all those kinds of things. And so we probably have hundreds, if not thousands, of software agreements throughout the university. And so what we need there is the specific thing that the student is concerned about.
Thank you, President Crow. This question is from several students. What is the university doing to make tuition more affordable for all students, including international students and out-of-state students? Any updates on tuition this coming year you can provide?
So first, ASU is already one of the lowest cost universities to a student, any type of student. So we have our tuition for an international student is about half of our competitors. So if you think of USC as a competitor, if you think of the big schools that have lots of international students, NYU, Northeastern, Columbia, USC, those are in the top 10, as are we. We have the lowest tuition of any of the large international student destination universities. For out-of-state students, also we have a modest tuition rate compared to out-of-state tuition. So if you're an out-of-state student in California, your tuition is closer to $50,000 a year. If you're an out-of-state student in Arizona, your tuition is closer to low 30s. For an in-state student, we have two ways to look at tuition. How many students in the room are in-state? So many, yeah. How many are out-of-state or out-of-country? Thanks. So for in-state students, we have a tuition and fee structure around $12,000 a year, give or take, depending on what fee structure program that you're in. And there we have substantial financial aid. We have what's called an average net tuition. That's tuition after grants, no loans, for an in-state student of less than $3,000. So we're very excited about that achievement. We have agreed a long time ago to keep tuition as low as possible. So we have the lowest tuition of any of the public universities in Arizona. We have the lowest tuition of any private university, obviously in Arizona. We have a low tuition and high financial aid. The tuition model going forward, we have an arrangement with the Board of Regents where they've asked us to operate within a model wherein we would keep tuition for in-state students not increasing more than 3% in any given year, for which we don't have to go back to the board for approval because we're operating within that model, and 5% within a given year for international students or out-of-state students. And so we're operating within that model, so there will be no extraordinary tuition increases. Right now, our inflation cost, that is the cost of goods, services, and people relative to inflation, is higher than those numbers. And so it is likely that we will go to we'll go to tuition at the limit of what we can increase for now, still keeping tuition low and still keeping it predictable. So it's really not just the cost of tuition, but the predictability of tuition, while also expanding financial aid and expanding access to employment. So about 17,000 students on campus work for the university also. So just process that for a second. 17,000. That's a huge number of students. And not all those student jobs are filled. And so we have, on any given day, a couple hundred student jobs or more that aren't filled. I'm always a little bit surprised by that any of them are not filled and that the line isn't out the door to take these jobs, because they are relatively well compensated and are a way for you to take on your financial issues. I'll also say that, we're operating in an environment where we have little public support for the institution. So we are a largely self-supporting institution, trying to keep our prices as low as possible while delivering a product. Now, I'll say one other thing relative to tuition. So I assume everyone that's attending the university would like an education that's at the highest level of what a university can deliver against competition. So if at Stanford they're charging $70,000 a year for tuition, and they have $70,000 per student of income, and at ASU for an in-state student we have 12,000, and for an international student we have 35,000, then just run the numbers and ask yourself, how do we provide a level of education that is world-class with a fraction of the resources? Through unbelievable innovation, technology, design, and the way that we run the system. So we do all of those things together. But it is, in fact, the case that we have to be able to pay our faculty, pay our staff, pay for our systems, pay for our softwares, pay for our facilities, all of which comes from the same tuition dollar. So we have a low tuition model with high financial aid. We'll continue to do that, but tuition will continue to increase on a very modest basis.
This next question is from an undergraduate student. What initiatives is ASU implementing to enhance on-campus safety, especially in addressing concerns such as improved lighting, increased security patrols, and accessible resources for students walking alone at night?
Well, those are important issues, and so we have continued to invest in the ASU Police Department, including in more police aides, who are not sworn officers but are assisting the police department, including more private security that we have hired also to help be present, including call boxes and response teams. And so, we're concerned about student safety. We have not had a large number of issues. What have we had in the last 2 semesters? Safety issues at night walking. Chief Thompson, is he back there? So Chief Thompson of the ASU Police Department. So nighttime safety issues, what do we have?
Nothing major. We continue to do the safety escort service for students, faculty, and staff. And
So just explain how that works.
yeah, we encourage you to reach out to us. You can call us or request us on the Live Safe app.
Don't call 911.
You don't know. Our non-emergency number, and that can be found on our website. And so that will allow an officer or a police aide to come and walk you
So if you don't
safely
feel
across
comfortable
campus.
for whatever reason, it's your friends took off and it's just you and you're worrying about getting back somewhere, then the police will come and escort you.
That's right. And on the Live Safe app, there's also an opportunity or an option for you to have a friend walk you or kind of virtually walk you across campus as well, if you don't want to necessarily have an officer or police aide there. So lots of different avenues for you to be safe on campus. And obviously we're continuing to work with the city agencies around us to ensure that for those students that are living nearby campus as they leave campus, that they also are safe. And our officers and police aides also they don't just stick to campus. They will go within a few blocks off of campus, knowing that that's where the majority of our students live. So
And I'll just say one other thing, and Chief, you might want to comment on this, and that is you also have to be cautious as students to not put yourself in hazardous situations. And so if you go somewhere and there's fights breaking out at some establishment that you're at in Phoenix or Scottsdale or somewhere like that, you should leave and go somewhere else before something happens to you.
absolutely. And so being aware of your surroundings, not walking late at night by yourself, not walking with your earbuds in, maybe just one earbud in so you can hear what's going on. Pay attention to, if someone's walking behind you and who could quickly just walk past you and grab your backpack or something like that. So,
Take your cell phone out of your hand.
that's
so that you're
exactly
not
right.
Paying attention, and they know that you're not paying attention.
Yep. So, we all have a stake in safety. And so we are
But in
happy
the last,
to engage with you on that.
semester and a half, we've had
I can't think of any major incidents around campus at nighttime or otherwise that would have.
so our environment is generally very safe. Knock on wood.
Correct.
We'd like to keep it that way, but generally.
This next question is from a graduate student. It seems the tuition surcharge is aimed to ensure that the financial structure of the university is upheld. This tuition surcharge and proposed fees have created more financial constraints on students, student workers, and graduate research / teaching assistants. This decision appears counterintuitive in the university's fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities it serves. How will you lead the university to ensure that these financial constraints are not inherently exclusionary for equitable access to higher education?
So that's a well-constructed question, and it makes a high-order point. We work with vigilance to keep the university financially accessible. And we know that it's accessible because we had a 9% increase in our enrollment last year. We know that it's accessible because the student body has continued to come from the broadest cross-section of families. We have over 50,000 Pell eligible undergraduates attending ASU. And before we began this process of, oh, by the way, when our tuition was almost nothing, I'm just trying to give you a sense of how complex this is. When I got there 22 years ago, we had 5,000 Pell eligible students or 8,000 Pell eligible students. So now we have 8 to 10 times as many Pell eligible students as we had. And so we do that by providing financial aid and so forth and so on. Now, the surcharge that the questioner asked about is a mandatory policy of the Arizona Board of Regents that when the state reduces the investment in the institution's core level of support, we will then have a surcharge to make that up. And so we did that this year. It's I don't remember the exact number, but it's something in the range of $300. And so that will go away if we're successful with the state at restoring those cuts, which is our hope. And we think we're making some progress on that. So if we get those cuts restored, then the surcharge goes away. So that's why it's called a surcharge. And it's a function of basically communicating to everyone how the institution is funded. So a small amount of support comes from the state, but that state support is very important. And if it's cut, then we have to find a way to make up those resources to maintain the continuation of the university's forward momentum. And so, students should be communicating either through student government or individually with their state legislative representatives if they have some interest or concern in the model for the funding of the universities.
Thank you, President Crow. This next question is from several students. What are ways ASU and ASU partners such as Aramark can hire more student workers? Since international students have to work on campus, we need more job opportunities. And how will ASU get more companies to recruit international students for hire?
I'm 100% certain that we're hiring more students to work at ASU than any other university in the country. But the question sort of feeds into something that I wish that we could do, and that is, in some ways, I wish that every student was also an employee of the university or a student worker at the university, contributing to the fact that while here, let's say right now we have about 85,000 students that will attend on campus in full immersion. Those 85,000 students then could be a part of the team that's touching 200,000 other learners online, 1 million other people that are interested in some of the assets that we have, And so there could be an opportunity for more and more student workers. And so there's more student worker jobs, more opportunities for student employment. I was just in India last week and had different groups with alumni and met with people in Mumbai and in Delhi and had so many meetings I can't keep track of all of them. But one of the things that was amazing to me was that of the students that are from India, do we have any students from India in the room? A couple, one or two, yeah. So the students from India, 3,500 of them are employed by ASU also as workers on campus. And so my joke was that soon they'll have taken over the whole university and they'll hold all the jobs at ASU. So I did get some laughs from that, but so there's no shortage. It's in fact, it's a fantastic opportunity for international students to pick up some resources on the American economic scale. And so student workers make the state's mandated minimum wage, which is around, I think we trail by 1 year, but 13 something dollars per hour, going up to 14, going up to 15. But there are student workers that make $30 an hour or more based on their skill set and the jobs that they're performing. So there's plenty of opportunities there.
Absolutely. This next question is from a downtown Phoenix student. If ASU's charter is deeply rooted in inclusion, why is the Greek Leadership Village exclusive to NPHC and MGC housing and departments for those student leaders? Why are there only pillars for the NPHC Greek fraternities and sororities and barely any representation for the MGC? How can we as students support our NPHC and MGC student leaders outside of their respective history months? Lastly, has ASU ever thought to have an MGC and NPHC space at the downtown or West Valley campuses for those student leaders?
I'll have Joanne take a little answer there. So the answer is that it's a good idea about finding more ways to build more housing for different groups that want to live in a social fraternity or social sorority. Leadership-oriented groups would be fantastic, and if there are student proposals to build such a thing, I'm sure that we can find a way to accommodate those in the residence hall systems that we have.
Yeah, so for those who are unfamiliar, we have 5 councils. So we have NALFO, MGC, MPHC, IFC, and Penn Hellenic councils. All 5 of those councils are represented in the Greek Leadership Community Center. And I realize that's in Tempe, so I'll speak to the other locations in a second. The other piece that I would share is as we built out the Greek Leadership Village, it was certainly talked about if any groups, it was open to everyone. So it was not exclusive in its design. Now, there are many groups who decide they don't wish to live together, that it can be some parts of their desire and history is not to live in community and college in that particular way. And so we've been working specifically, our director of fraternity and sorority life, to look at what President Crow you're mentioning is there are other places other than the Greek Leadership Village where students may wish to live together in community. So we are looking at all of those options for students who are interested or groups who are interested. I will reinforce, though, that each time there's an opening in the Greek Leadership Village, the call goes out to all chapters in all of those councils. So if there is continued interest as there is opening and availability, we would welcome that. So as far as other locations, this is the first I've heard of a desire to spread out in that way into the other locations. So we should talk. So if the questioner or others want to approach me about what locations or spaces are available downtown and West Valley to have that sense of community, then let's talk about it.
Yeah, so the Greek Leadership Village was a project that was derived when the university closed a number of fraternities on what used to be called Alpha Drive. And as those were closed, we needed a new arrangement for those students that had been historically active in Greek life on Alpha Drive, which is now a part of the Novus Innovation Corridor. And so that action doesn't mean that other actions can't be taken on other campuses. And so we just need to listen to proposals. And so people should come forth with proposals. I mean, I'd love to have more such housing on all of the campuses. And we do have student housing on all campuses. So.
Thank you. This next set of questions is from a graduate student. Can you comment on the current process for deciding health insurance plans for ASU students? What steps will you take to improve the student health insurance plan? How will you address improving mental health resources through the centralized insurance plan? Support vision and dental benefits to be added by the university in the insurance plan? And how will you provide more flexibility in insurance options?
complicated question that I'll ask Dr. Vogel to also comment on, but most American students who are under the age of 26 are on their parents' health insurance, and that would be the majority of our American students. So they're already covered by insurance in one form or another. There are some students who, don't have parents, don't have family structures, don't have insurance structures, and so we look at them in a certain way. And then there are students who are older than 26 who then are graduate students or something, and they're looking for insurance. Insurance in the United States is complicated. Then there's insurance issues for international students, which are very complicated on a number of fronts. And so, Joanne, what is our present policy?
So every 5 years, we go out as a request for proposals to look at the insurance company who's going to provide our student health insurance product. Currently, we have about 12,000 students who are on that student health insurance, and we are about halfway.
12,000 out of 85,000
Exactly.
on campus.
Yep. So with that, we can certainly look at, and we do in each of the cycles. So there's a health advisory committee that our undergraduate student government and our graduate student government sends representatives to. They hear the update each year about what may or may not be happening with regard to rates. We also price out what dental and vision might look like if added to the current plan. But if you can imagine, with 12,000 students on insurance, if they thought that their premiums were going to, or what they're paying for that insurance were to go up $200, $300, $400 in order to have that added a piece, there is less, I think, desire every time we've analyzed it for the premiums to float up because we've added in vision and dental. Many of us who maybe do have some vision and dental coverage also find that those insurance products on the market might be iffy. I'm looking across those who have it. And so we do what is actually, I think, more affordable for students, which is to offer a discount card for vision and dental. We just haven't found by our student voices on that health advisory committee and then doing the financial analysis that it would make sense to add in vision and dental in the current structure.
So everybody has to understand how insurance works. So one, it is a for-profit business. So the principal objective of the insurance company is to make a profit, to be clear. That is their principal objective. To make a profit, then, they have to collect enough in payments for the company to cover all of the requests for medical, dental, or vision service, all of them, within the model of whatever they charge, and then also still make a profit. So it turns out that it is a complicated and expensive thing to have such insurance. So the reason that we've taken the discount, we're buying these discount cards or building relationships from what the discounts are available. So we've just found that to be a more effective thing for those students that have dental or vision needs.
I'm going to make one more comment, which is if you are struggling to find the insurance coverage you need, then let us know, because the health services will be happy to help navigate that with you. And then if you are looking for particular referrals for services, we also have specialists who can help refer you to individuals that take the insurance you may have. So we can help you find insurance if you don't have it. We can help you navigate the insurance you have.
There are also dental schools in the county looking for patients. And so I'm serious. I mean, they're looking for patients. And so their price structure is really low. Because the dentists are under supervision, figuring out how to be dentists. And so,
in addition to that, can you comment on the current process for deciding health insurance plans for ASU students, and how will you improve the transparency of this process to be more equitable and inclusive?
There's no lack of transparency on anything, so people just have to sit and take the time to see what we do, how we solicit the proposals, who proposes. One thing that's important to the questioner or others is, what is the market? And so these are insurance in the United States is provided by for-profit companies. And so they bid on our proposal, and then they come in with a business plan with a price, and that's what they charge as their rates. And then their rates then are such that covers all their costs. So they pay nothing from the insurance premiums that they get, and then they also make a profit. So, but that can be completely transparent. It is transparent. Who applied, what their proposals were. All of that is transparent at the institution. So,
is there a possibility for ASU online students to pay extra to get ASU health insurance if they live locally?
I don't know if we've looked at that or not. Have we, Aaron?
We look at it every year. It's not currently in the insurance contract for all the reasons you mentioned, President Crow, which is it's a competitive marketplace. And then so people bid on it in order to achieve what you've described. But we do look at it every year. And then we bring that information to the multiple constituents, which includes the Health Advisory Committee. We have a member of the Health Advisory Committee right there. So there's multiple students who are on it to analyze the impact on the cost. ASU online students putting them on plans changes the cost structure for insurance. And that's what's considered every year. But to Dr. Vogel's point, any student, including any ASU online student who's struggling to get insurance or to use their insurance, can contact us at the health services, regardless of whether you're emergent or online, insurance@asu.edu, and we will help you.
So the reason for the differences is that most online students are older and therefore they're in a different calculation of a rate encumbrance. And so again, these are companies attempting to make money off of the provision of insurance. So the rate calculation difference is a function of, like, a person my age is consuming much more insurance, medical insurance, because you have things breaking down, you got to do this, you got to fix that, you got to make all these things happen. So we would not be in the group that one wants to insure.
This last question that we received is from a few students. What are some of your goals for ASU pertaining to the new year? And are there any upcoming partnerships or projects that will benefit students?
So what we're really looking to do is to keep the university stable in the middle of a very complex social, economic, and political moment, focusing on studies, focusing on research, focusing on discovery. We have all kinds of new initiatives because the university's success is a function of innovation and a function of initiatives. That's how we're evolving. That's how we're moving forward. I was just in India where we announced 5 partnerships with 5 private universities. I met with the Minister of Education in India. We had ways to bring in more students from India, projects from India. We have over 20,000 alums in India. I had 2 alumni events, one in Delhi and one in Mumbai. And lots of people showed up to this, and they were very excited about ASU. So a part of all of our initiatives are, how are we going to acquire the resources for the university to be successful? And how do we build a truly national scale, globally impactful university? So those are all things that we've got ongoing.
Thank you, President Crow. To any students whose questions was not asked here today, they are currently being forwarded off to the proper places at the university so they can be answered, and you should receive an answer soon. Thank you for coming today. Please join us for the next student forum with President Crow on March 25th at the Tempe campus. Have a wonderful day and go Devils!
Thank you.